we need to talk about timers. So I'm going to actually take this moment to move this code, Command X, up to the top here. I like to keep all my variables together. So that's why if they're not local variables or variables that are set within a function, right, I'm going to want to have these things separate. So let us start our timer. So let's just go ahead and write what's called a set interval. Set interval has two parameters. One is the function to run it, and then the other one is the number of milliseconds to call that named function within. So I'm just going to start right here. Set interval. So you can see there's a set interval right here. So set interval has two arguments, two parameters. One is the function that's being called, and one is the amount of time between calls. It's at a set interval. Okay, that's why it's called set interval. All right, so then I'm going to name this function count seconds. So let's do that. And that means we're going to have to create a function with that name. So see where it says set interval, callback, that's basically the name of its function, and how many milliseconds between each execution, basically each time it gets called. So milliseconds, if we want 1 second, that's 1,000 milliseconds. All right. So let me write my count seconds function. I'm going to do the following. I'm going to drop my doc block that I pre-wrote into here. So when this function is called, do the following things. We don't have any parameters to pass in here, so I have this at param none. Here's what we want it to do. Subtract 1 from seconds and 2 update display. All right. So first, function, count seconds. All right. So see how there's nothing in that set of parentheses? That means there's no parameters for it to pass. It's just going to run as it is. So now we're going to subtract 1 from seconds. So just like plus plus, we have minus minus. Seconds, minus minus, and then we're going to want to update the display. So I'm going to do the same kind of thing that I did with the click box. I'm going to have a local variable that's going to store the value that I want to have output. It's actually the same name if you look, right? Line 15 here has the same name as line 40. But because they are local variables that are specifically within the scope of these curly braces, they are not going to interfere with each other. So score S message equals, and it's going to be the value of seconds plus, and then quote, space. So if I want to have a space between the number of seconds and the rest of the seconds, then I need to put that space in there within those quotes physically. All right. Next thing I want to do is update the display, right? So that's going to be set property. And, look at this. I can just run over here, right? Again, we have our 3 arguments. They are going to be UI seconds, right? So UI standing for user interface, and seconds being what we're labeling. So that's the first, right? There's our ID. Property, what property are we manipulating? We're manipulating text. And what value are we setting it? S message. So now I hit run. And then I hit the play button. And then I can see, hey, wait, my seconds are already counted down and I'm not doing anything. right? And it goes negative. Oh my gosh. Whoa, 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 whoa. So how do we go about fixing this? Well, let's fix one problem at a time. First off, our set interval shouldn't run right away, right? So when should it start running? Should it start running when we click the box? So your first one's free. First point is free. Should it run anytime I get random int? No, probably not. What about, where's my event listener for the click function? See, so when I get to the game screen, maybe that's when I should start doing the timer. All right, so this is why we're gonna take our timer. We'll have a timer up here. Instead of set interval, we're going to say var timer, and we're going to leave it undefined because we're going to set that timer variable when they click Command X, when they click on the play button. In fact, I probably want to start putting my and I need to make sure that I store it in the variable timer. So here, I'm not using the keyword var because timer is a global variable. And I want to keep it as a global variable because I want to be able to access that value outside of this function. Okay, so that's about what's called scope, and I've kind of sort of danced around it. We haven't really talked about scope yet, but it is important. Okay, so timer, we're going to set its value here once they click the play button. Then it'll immediately start the timer, and then the timer will do its count seconds, and so on and so forth. So in count seconds, let's just see how this works, right? Let's just start there. So let's go ahead and hit run. Let's go ahead and hit play. Now you can see that the timer doesn't start until I hit play. Right? Okay, but it still goes negative. You can see that, right? It's counting down. It's continuing to count down. Well, good thing that I made this a global variable so that I can access it from the count seconds function. I'm going to write what's called a conditional statement. We already saw this in the get random integer, right? The value that I want to compare against is what is the value of seconds when I want the game to stop? Let's go ahead and click this reset. What is the value of seconds when I want the game to stop? It's going to be 0. So I want to check. I'm going to use my if, and I'm going to say if the value of seconds is less than or equal to 0, then what do I want it to do? I want it to set the game. This is the game over condition, right? If seconds are less than or equal to 0, then I'm going to do a couple of things. Number one, I want to clear the interval. So clear interval. And what item is storing my interval? It's the timer. Okay, clear interval timer. Then, let's see. After that, I need to have it go to the game over screen. So I'm going to say set screen. And the value there is going to be game over, I believe. Right, so instead of screen 1, should be game over. If this is true, then clear the timer and set the screen to game over. Perfect. So let's do that. Test it, run it. Let's click on play. All right, the score is going up. My seconds are going down, down, down. All right, now it says you scored 10 points, but that's because we're going to change this value for the actual score. But there we have it. If I hit the play again button, it doesn't do anything yet because we haven't set it to. But there we have it. So let's go ahead and go back to show text. There's a third item here. 3, check for 0 seconds. And then game over. Okay, so that's the end of part 4. In this part, we touched on variables and scope. We talked about conditional statements and comparisons. We talked about set interval, which is a type of timer, but kind of works like an event in that it runs a function when it is executed. In part 5, we'll finish up our game. Anyway, I hope this was fun and informative. Happy coding, everyone! See you in the next video.